Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's government briefing. We will be holding today's government briefing for an hour and a half, a good 4 hours, so please bear that in mind when you ask questions. I will now give the floor to the Minister, and then we will take questions.
Thank you very much for the floor, and I would like to welcome you all. Perhaps even an hour and a half will be too long, because today's cabinet meeting, or the one in May, would not have been a reason to hold a cabinet briefing, because no specific decisions were taken at the cabinet meeting. There was one part of it that I would like to report on, since the resignation of the President of the Public Treasury and the former Minister of Justice took place before the government had done so. So obviously the first opportunity was for the government to draw political conclusions from the matter that has dominated the Hungarian press and the Hungarian public over the past 2 weeks. What we can say is that what inevitably happened in this case is what must inevitably happen. The President of the Public Prosecutor's Office and the former Minister of Justice have accepted responsibility in a very responsible manner. They resigned and withdrew from public office.
Minister, do you think that pardoning the accomplice of a pedophile criminal is a mistake?
In any case, it was a wrong decision.
And whose ultimate fault do you think that is?
Whoever made the decision.
This was not a personal decision. Can Judith Varga confirm that she put forward a negative proposal?
If the Prime Minister wishes, he can comment.
So the government is not investigating whether one of its members supported or rejected it.
But I know the answer, I repeat. If the Prime Minister wishes to comment on it, he will.
I think it's quite an important issue. I think the public has a right to know.
I suggest that the Prime Minister should speak.
And why doesn't he say so?
Because I think that after both of them have resigned, and the interim president has resigned, it's not elegant for me to interfere with that. Both of them took responsibility, and from there on the responsibility is measured. I don't want to be involved in the weighing of responsibility, but if there is such a question, there are two players, the Minister of Justice and the President of the Interim Council, and they should be asked.
Formally or informally, has no member of the government informed Juli Varga of this? No. And she was asked afterwards why not. It's a pretty important matter.
It is not the practice for a Minister of Justice to inform the government of any pardon decision. In very exceptional cases, such a situation may arise.
Wasn't this one?
If you ask me, no, I think it is obvious that it should not have been decided in that way and should not have been countersigned. So it does not fall into the category of having to debate at length.
So an application for clemency by an accomplice of a pedophile offender is not an exceptional case, according to you?
Once again, if you don't understand my clear answers, there is no point in having a discussion. So I think it is such a clear-cut case, and so clear-cut that no pardon can be granted or countersigned, that there is no need for any special remonstration.
Well, it has become more of a scandal than that, so perhaps it should have been.
Or there is a good reason to decide.
According to the Hungarian legislation in force, the Minister of Justice acts on behalf of the government in matters of pardons. And you are here representing the government at the press conference, and the title of the press conference is also why the government will be here. And in the light of all this, we can perhaps rightly expect you to shed some light on the matter, since you have admitted that you know that Judith Varga submitted a power plant application to the President of the Republic with or without support. Thank you.
If it is in the public interest, I suggest that you request it. It should be fulfilled. If not, then after 2 resignations, I think that I do not wish to give any further information on this, even taking your condemnatory view.
But it was a government move. We agree on that, don't we?
You mean the granting of clemency?
No, it is that the Barony case somehow raised this issue.
No, the Justice Minister was a step on the pardon issue. The Justice Minister is a member of the government's chief executive.
Yes, but we're used to you giving every government...
And I try to answer everything, but I'm saying here, this is probably the first time I've ever answered something that I know and I don't answer. Other times I answer things that I don't know. Okay?
Minister, does the government or you have any knowledge of what the pardon was? I don't know. Can you not ask me?
Again, I don't know about that. I could say we can both ask him. I don't know about that. Officially, the President has said that he has not given an explanation.
And did anyone from the government ask what the reason was?
I don't know. No one has given me a bar.
But was no one from the government curious to know what the reason was for this decision to pardon him?
4 numbers. Maybe there were some who were curious, maybe there were some who asked. I didn't have the opportunity to do that, so I can't give you any insight into that. But what I was asking about, not in relation to my motivation, but in relation to a decision made by another person, I feel that that is perhaps beyond the scope of what I should be able to answer.
This has become quite a serious matter. Obviously, it is as serious in a different way, but it is as serious as the case of the toilet block, which was, as you said, dealt with by the government. So in the light of this, that no one has asked what was the reason for the pardon decision.
Yes, but the comparison is completely false, I think. In one case, I repeat, if such a pardon in the case of the Budahazi, I think it tells the Republic that it made the right decision. But there were clear pro and con arguments there. The difficulty in this case is that I only see counter-arguments.
So then neither does he, and probably...
So there is nothing to discuss, I think.
Yes, but let's just say if I were a member of the government, I would certainly be curious to know what was behind such a decision.
I go for the interlocutor's branch.
On a very important issue, if the issue of crimes against or against children were not important in itself, the government has been flying the flag on this issue for years. Moreover, it was in the context of a diplomatically sensitive meeting, in the context of the Pope's visit, that this particular pardon decision was taken, and yet there was no information in the government that such a pardon procedure was taking place.
No. Why not? Because the way things have always been done by the police is that when an application for a pardon is received, the Department of Pardons and Paroles in the Ministry of Justice formulates its opinion and submits it to the Minister of Justice accordingly. To recommend or not recommend that a pardon be granted. It is up to you in particular to decide, and this has been automatically countersigned by the Minister of Justice for the last 25 years, whether he has been a left-wing or right-wing Minister of Justice under any government. So it's quite understandable why it happened that way. The specific case is of course not understandable, I agree with that.
To the question about Peter Magyar, he also called Minister Matura a friend in the partisan interview. Since he came out in public and gave an interview to Partizan, has the minister called him, contacted him, asked him why he made such extremely serious allegations?
I have not done so for several reasons. Why not? Partly because I spoke to him months ago, the last time partly because he predicted that if his various state appointments ceased, he would do what he is doing now.
So did the minister know that?
He wrote to me, so I knew.
In a text message? Or is it irrelevant to my order? And you tried to talk him out of it, Minister?
No, I didn't, because I don't like threats.
In what he said at the partisan, Peter Hungarian described the situation around the shoulder, the situation around the area, that he didn't want to do something, or he didn't want to do something because the Secret Service man, some Secret Service man warned him in the Carmelites, so I understand. So it must have been the Hungarian some service. As he was, formerly in the National Security Committee, can you imagine such a case that in such a case the services people acted, but maybe they are investigating this, that, let's say, either the constitutional lawyer or the information office was involved in such a conversation?
No. So just because someone is divorced from the services has nothing to do with it.
So then there was no such case, which is what Peter the Hungarian is talking about on Partizan.
I can only say that it has nothing to do with the fact that someone is separated from the services, and obviously the Hungarian services have nothing to do with it either.
Do you think it was possible for a state body to be used as a kind of quasi-quack stick, or was Peter Magyar making untrue statements?
There is no connection between the fact that the KHI could have investigated the institution he runs and the fact that he is divorced. Nor, I think, temporal.
But he did say that he had been called by the head of KHI and told that it was a warning.
Is there any evidence to support that claim?
There is not, which is why I'm asking you if you know of any, and is it possible that this...
I'm not aware of any such thing. I don't think it's conceivable.
So, if I understood correctly, the messenger or email message you just exchanged with Peter Magyar, he threatened to tip the scales if you expelled him from his public job. Does that mean that he was threatened with being fired from his state job?
It just wasn't an exchange of messages. I got one long before that whole thing was going to be on the agenda. I received a text message to that effect, warning me that if he lost his state job, he could cause such and such inconvenience. Again, I don't like threats, so I didn't respond in that form either.
Maybe he doesn't like it either, and that's why he wrote this.
Yes, but then it shouldn't have been me, but the person who threatened him.
I see. So you were not aware that he was threatened with being fired from his job?
The question is, no, I didn't know that he had been threatened by anyone. I didn't know that. Let's say, if one looks at why Peter Hungarian held these jobs, it was therefore a strained confidence in him.
Wasn't he an excellent person for these posts?
He certainly did well, as those who have now decided not to employ him any longer can judge.
How realistic is it for someone to text you out of the blue and threaten the NER in it that they will fold if your state appointments are terminated?
I don't see any attempt to do so, but that is simply what has happened, so whether or not it is realistic for him, it is still the truth.
How often do you receive such messages?
The reason I remember it so well is because I very rarely get them.
Maybe I never did. And can you prove it anyway? Because on the face of it, it sounds like a Rogan Antal kind of communications panel.
Yes, but whatever you said, you might take it as an insult, but I didn't. It's still the truth, which I'll say again. I have the message at my disposal, of course.
So you can prove it then? Yes, I can prove it. And will you produce it if necessary?
I don't want to, because even if the message was sent in such an informal way, I take it that it was a particular form of communication, still in private.
Péter Magyar responded on Facebook saying, and I ask as a question, that in the summer of 2023, you did indeed indicate to Péter Magyar in writing that it would be Judith Varga's decision that Péter Magyar could keep his public contracts, and that you did indeed promise earlier that in the event of a swift and smooth response, Péter Magyar's situation would of course not change.
Now, I will not say anything about the private life and the response of Judith Varga and Péter Magyar, because I feel that, quite simply, that is not a matter for the public.
The question was that you had indicated in writing that Péter Magyar would keep his public contracts if Judith Varga agreed.
Once again, this cannot be interpreted in itself. The whole of his undertakings historically would need to be known for that, but after that it is not a matter for the public. But if one gets to know it, then all the details can be discussed afterwards.
You continue to say that the Kehi investigation was a upcoming investigation? Péter Magyar says,
I don't have this reported knowledge.
Is this case considered closed by the government?
Well, of course, it still has to be elected with the new president of the republic.
Part of the scandal?
Everything has been done, it has been done, and the President of the Republic and the Minister of Justice have resigned from their posts. So, yes.
That the President of the Public Ministry may have now resigned and the former Minister of Justice has withdrawn, but that no one from the government has yet actually apologized to the victims in this case?
Of course not, because the Minister of Justice says that the President of the Public Prosecutor's Office has done so.
And others have no such responsibility then? No. All right, thank you.